Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the crumbling skyline of Springfield, casting elongated shadows through the once bustling streets. Signs of life were there, but they felt muted, as though time had settled into an unsettling stillness. It was the kind of evening that felt tranquil, yet undercurrents of anxiety clung to the air like a fine mist. On this particular November night, the community was thrown into turmoil after the discovery of a body in the old Rogers Mill, a desolate part of town, often avoided by locals. The mill had remained idle for almost 2 decades, casting a long shadow on everything surrounding it, a reminder of better days now shrouded in whispers of decay and danger. The body, a young woman, was found by a group of teenagers who had wandered too far from home, seeking thrills in places they didn't belong. As the news broke, pressure mounted on the local sheriff's department. The victim was soon identified as Jessica Marsh, a 22-year-old college student admired for her vibrant spirit. Eyewitness interviews revealed that she had been seen only days before her death, smiling and laughing at a cafe, seemingly embraced by the world around her. The dichotomy of her last vibrant days against the grim reality made her untimely demise all the more jarring. The shops closed early that night as worried residents exchanged hushed allegations. Who could do this? Where had Jessica been before her life was cruelly snuffed out? Each unanswered question pressed heavier on the already tense atmosphere, with the curtain rising on a dangerous mystery that would soon consume this small town. The victim. Jessica Marsh was known for her warmth, a beacon of light that seemed to illuminate even the darkest corners of Springfield. Born and raised in the quaint suburbs, she was the eldest child in a close-knit family, characterized by laughter-filled dinners and secret family recipes passed down through generations. Her aspirations were as bright as her smile. She was pursuing a degree in psychology, eager to understand the complexities of human behavior in the hopes of one day helping others. Friends described her as an empathetic listener, forever available to lend her ear to anyone in search of solace. On weekends, she could often be found volunteering at the local shelter, her laughter bridging the gap between people from starkly different walks of life. Despite her sunny disposition, Jessica had her own struggles, grappling with self-doubt and anxiety behind closed doors, a silent battle few knew she fought. In the days leading up to her death, Jessica had shown signs of restlessness, confiding in her best friend, Lena, about feeling increasingly overwhelmed with the pressures of school and looming assignments. "I just need a break," she had said, staring out over the horizon from their favorite coffee shop, her voice a mere whisper over the clinking of cups and chatter around them. "I'll feel better after the weekend." But that weekend had turned into a nightmare. Investigators later learned she had attended a party, a casual gathering that drew students from the campus and neighboring town. Lena hadn't been there, but conversational clues hinted at a jovial time marked by laughter and perhaps missteps. That night, however, was also the beginning of the end. Interactions that once felt harmless could be scrutinized and questioned, need a subtle reminder of how thin the line could be between revelry and tragedy. As the realization of Jessica's absence sunk deeper into the fabric of Springfield, her shining light was extinguished, transforming her projected future into a haunting mystery that would linger in the hearts of those who loved her, forever searching for answers that now seemed so far out of reach. The crime scene. The morning after Jessica's body was discovered, The Rogers Mill loomed ominously beneath a slate-gray sky, its once majestic structure now a husk consumed by vines and decay. Yellow police tape flapped in the chill of autumn air, forming a stark barrier between the chaos of investigation and the quiet dread seeping through the community. Detective Michael Harrington surveyed the scene. He had seen his share of crime scenes, but the sight before him a petite young woman lying among the overgrown weeds and crumbling bricks was one that would linger in his memory. Jessica was positioned in a way that suggested both vulnerability and finality, as though she had been placed on display for the world to see her broken spirit. Her pale skin contrasted sharply with the dark earth beneath her, drawing an unsettling image etched into the minds of those who would later learn of her tragic fate. The area surrounding her body was cordoned off, but the detective noticed signs of a struggle nearby. Stray footprints in the damp soil, remnants of what looked like broken twigs and scuffed leaves that led deeper into the thicket. Gritting his teeth, he felt the familiar rush of adrenaline fueled by urgency. He ordered his team to canvass the vicinity for anything seemingly insignificant, but potentially linked to the case of discarded items, any scrap of evidence that could provide clarity to this unspeakable horror. Hours passed as forensic teams meticulously documented every angle of the area with cameras and tape measures minutiae that would later become critical for reconstructions and analysis. A coroner, faced with the grim task of examining Jessica, made their way to the site, emphasizing the care and respect required in handling the delicate situation. As the chatter of investigation melded with the rustling branches, Detective Harrington knew they were not just dealing with a homicide. This was the unraveling of a life full of potential, the abrupt end to a narrative still waiting to be fully written. It was a race against him and O just to solve the case, but to uncover who might have seen her that night, who may have known too much or too little. A haunting specter loomed within the shadows of the mill, and alongside it, the urgency to catch a killer before they vanished into the obscurity of an anonymity, where victims faded and perpetrators thrived. The early investigation. As day turned into dusk, Detective Harrington gathered with his team in the cramped conference room at the Springfield Sheriff's Department. He spread a large map of the town across the scarred wooden table, highlighted with various points marking sightings, locations of interest, and areas searched. The room hummed with hushed voices as officers exchanged findings, posturing that created palpable energy beneath the fluorescent lights. The immediate focus shifted to the party Jessica had attended the night she disappeared. Word of mouth became indispensable. They needed to identify partygoers and canvass that social circle for leads. The team quickly fanned out, interviewing friends and acquaintances. Lena emerged as a central figure, her heart heavy with grief as she offered insight into Jessica's recent state of mind. She was stressed, but she wouldn't have gone off with just anyone, Lena insisted, tears brimming in her eyes as she recounted the last time she had seen her friend, a carefree moment of laughter at the cafe just days before tragedy struck. Detective Harrington took Lena's words to heart. They needed to track down the party's host, a fellow student known to throw large gatherings at an apartment near camp. Each officer was dispatched with the urgency of someone trying to extinguish a fire before it raged beyond control. The atmosphere was thick with determination. It was not just about solving a case. It was about restoring peace to a shattered community. Meanwhile, the forensic team meticulously combed through Jessica's personal effects, hoping to find clues hidden within her belongings. They came across her phone, marred but intact, providing a digital trailer window into her last moment. With a stroke of luck, it buzzed to life, as they attempted to retrieve data, leading them to conversations and missed calls that pointed toward potential friends and suspects alike. As the pieces of the puzzle began to emerge, Harrington felt a cautious optimism mixed with dread. Each new detail brought them closer to understanding Jessica's final hours, yet it also deepened the horror of the circumstances surrounding her death. Would they be able to unveil the truth and unearth the darkness that had snuffed out her light before it consumed further lives? Only time would tell. The dead ends. As the investigation progressed, the early momentum began to falter, leaving Detective Harrington to grapple with an unsettling wave of frustration. The once vibrant energy of his team faded into a weary routine as leads led to more questions, yet no concrete answers. Each sibling circle of acquaintances proved to be a labyrinth, with no dead ends yielding a clear path toward the truth. A party host, a charming yet evasive student named Ryan, became a focal point. Initially cooperative, he provided an alibi that placed him elsewhere. But the more they dug, the dimmer his claims grew. Witnesses saw him at the gathering, their testimonies contradicting his statements, yet without definitive proof of wrongdoing. He slipped back into the shadows. Detective Harrington felt a familiar knot tighten in his stomach as he noted the increasing frustration on his team's faces. Jessica's phone yielded some conversations that were benign text, filled with emojis and mundane weekend plans, but no critical insights into her state of mind or companions at the park. Despite reaching out to several of her contacts, the kindness of familiarity morphed into elusive silence. Calls went unanswered, texts ignored. Each unanswered message felt like stones piling atop the already heavy burden the detective carried. As 3 weeks slipped by, the case turned ice cold. Their search for vital surveillance footage from the party was met with digital dead ends. Nearby cameras had been malfunctioning, and witnesses reported leaving early. The town's close-knit nature made it difficult to maneuver the layers of gossip. Each day without a breakthrough intensified the stillness unfurling over the commune and bills to pay in families to support lost in the shadows of a haunting question that loomed over the town. Who could do this to Jessica? With grim determination, Harrington called for a meeting. They needed to their approach. Perhaps it was time to shift focus to revisit those who were closest to her, to peel back the layers and examine emotions cloaked in grief. It was becoming evident that uncovering the darkness required probing into the very hearts of those who loved Jessica. For even the brightest lights can cast the deepest shadows. A break in the case. Weeks had turned into a month when a glimmer of hope appeared against the backdrop of despair that had settled around the investigation. Detective Harrington, feeling smothered by the weight of accumulating dead ends, received an unexpected call late one evening from the coroner's office and an update on Jessica's autopsy. Intrigued, he prepared himself for the upcoming briefing with genuine anticipation. The air felt charged as he entered the department the next morning. The coroner, Dr. Helen Foster, sat across from Harrington, her brow furrowed with concentration. "There's something here that suggests Jessica didn't die instantly," she began, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. Toxicology results revealed traces of a substance in her system, a sedative, possible. It indicates she may have been incapacitated before her death. Harrington leaned forward, hope tangling with anxiety. So she wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone had to have given her that. There was clarity in the chaos, a new thread that could unravel the entire tapestry woven by grief and fear. With renewed vigor, Harrington assembled his team to hash out potential angles. They revisited the party attendees, this time focusing on anyone who might have had access to or knowledge of the sudden. The list of favorites seemed to narrow down, putting Ryan under a new microscope after all. But there were others too, those who might possess knowledge of alternative parties, late-night gatherings, or risky behaviors. Within days, they were able to track down a series of recollections from acquaintances who had seen a now untouchable personality at the party, a student rumored to operate at the edges of legality, known for having access to hard-to-find substances. Details emerged about a pact he had made with Ryan, reinforcing suspensions already swirling within the investigation's halls. The detective's heart raced as he could finally pursue a tangible thread. They sent an officer to stake out the potential suspect's address, an apartment frequently visited by assorted friends, while others focused on gathering further evidence against Ryan. Harrington felt a surge of purpose that had been fleeting for weeks. The light of possibility flickered brightly against the backdrop of desperation. This newfound hope incited a desperate rush to solidify the facts and bring forth justice, and not just for Jessica, but for all the lives her untimely death had touched. The suspect. The sun dipped low in the sky as Detective Harrington prepared for the unraveling that was about to unfold. They had gathered enough information to interview Ryan Thompson again, this time more strategically, like predators stalking their prey. With each passing day, his cool demeanor had begun to cool under the weight of scrutiny. Whispers of urgency and suspicion had seeped into the fabric of the community, and Ryan was acutely aware of the gathering storm. Ryan sat across from Harrington in the interrogation room, his casual bravado masking a growing unease. The detective observed the shifts in his body language, fingers tapping nervously against the cool metal table, biting his lip as he squirms beneath Harrington's probing gaze. The atmosphere felt electric, pregnant with unspoken truths. "Ryan, we're trying to understand Jessica's last moments," Harrington began, his tone tempered with an intensity that left little room for evasion. "Your story about being away from the party doesn't hold up when we have witnesses placing you there. You were seen with her. You know something about her death." The air thickened as Ryan's bravado faltered, his brow glistening with sweat. "So I didn't do anything to her," he stammered, his eyes darting away from the detective's unwavering gaze. "I was just, everyone was drinking, and Everyone," Harrington pressed. "You think that just gaslighting your alibi will work? If everyone was drinking, who would have slipped something into her drink? You had access." The room was thick with tension, and Ryan's defenses began to crumble. "I just saw her talking to some guy. I didn't know if she'd taken anything before." I didn't even know who he was. The panic slipped into his voice, becoming high-pitched and desperate. As he spoke, details spilled forth like water gushing from a breached dam. "She didn't seem right before I left, but I was with my friends. There was no reason to think it was that serious." "I need you to be honest with me, Ryan," Harrington commanded as he leaned forward, his voice low and insistent. "This could cost you everything if we prove otherwise. Help me find the guy she was speaking to, and I can make sure you aren't serving as the next scapegoat for her death." In that moment, Ryan's face fell, understanding the weight of the words he had just been handed. The vulnerability that overtook him unveiled a very different layer to the constructed life he had maintained. A flicker of fear crossed his features as he considered the state. The predator was now a mere creature caught in the headlights, and the truth, once buried beneath layers of lies, was ready to expose itself. By taking that step into honesty, Ryan had pivoted the investigation away from speculation and towards the path of discovery that could unearth not just the answers, but the dark circles of influence extending deeper into Jessica's world. The trial. As the courtroom filled with spectators, an electric tension quivered in the air. The small space was saturated with mixed emotions: grief, anger, and anticipation, converging into a singular focus that narrowed in on the defendant, Ryan Thompson. Seated at the front beside his attorney, Harrington sat towards the back, his heart heavy with the weight of the tragedy that had unfolded. This was the culmination of months of exhaustive investigation. A quest for truth that had led to an unyielding climax. Opening statements rang out, echoing off the walls as the prosecutor painted a vivid portrait of Jessica's life before her tragic death. They recounted not only her bright spirit and aspirations, but also the dread that flared when her smiling face turned cold, that sensation of helplessness rippling through the community. The prosecution's narrative firmly established Ryan's connection to Jessica, bolstered by evidence of her communication leading up to the party. They retrieved text messages that revealed a night that quickly spiraled out of control. Harrington could see the faces of Jessica's family seated in the front row, their grief palpable. A mother clutched a framed photo of her daughter, a silent testament to a vibrant spirit snuffed out too soon. The image of Jessica, forever captured in youthful laughter, was a stark contrast to the somber unfolding of events. The defense countered with an onslaught of emotional appeals, portraying Ryan as a confused young man who had been unfairly thrust into the spotlight, a victim of circumstance rather than malice. Ryan was not responsible for Jessica's choices that night, his attorney claimed, shifting the narrative to insinuate that an unnamed third party was likely involved, seeking to create doubt in the minds of jurors. As testimonies rolled on, Harrington listened intently, watching as character witnesses offered inconsistent recollections about the party atmosphere and events that led up to Jessica's demise. The defense tried to cast a wider net, dragging everyone into the fray, searching for any fracture in the timeline that might absolve Ryan. But the truth hung like a dark cloud overhead, a lurking inevitability that was palpable in the courtroom. As evidence mounted, the dynamics in the room shifted. Detective Harrington took the stand, relaying details from the investigation, the gathering of evidence, the confessions, and the implications of the toxicology reports. His steady voice resonated with conviction, grounding the facts in undeniable truth. This wasn't simply a tragic accident, he concluded. This was a failure to act, and it cost Jessica her life. The trial stretched over weeks, filled with heart-wrenching insights and emotional testimony. But with each closing argument, a sense of resolve began to weave through the air. The weight of justice hung precariously in the balance as the jury retreated to deliberate on a verdict that would either prove restorative or shatter provisions of hope for Jessica's family. And then, finally, the gavel struck, reverberating through the solemn silence. The jury filed back in, tension coiling like a spring, ready to either confirm their darkest fears or offer the semblance of closure to a grieving community. "We find the defendant guilty of manslaughter," came the verdict, echoing through the chamber, and a collective breath was held tightly for an excruciating moment before it released into muted sobs of relief and the heavy weight of grief that now intertwined with a small measure of justice. Though justice had been served, it was a bittersweet notion, a reminder that while some shadows had been cast away, the loss of Jessica would fulfill a grief that would forever linger, a testimony to fleeting moments, lost potential, and the echoes, a life that would reach far beyond the confines of stained walls. The aftermath. In the weeks following the verdict, Springfield wrestled with a profound shift in its spirit. The verdict had provided a measure of closure, but the void left by Jessica's absence continued to echo through the town, serving as a somber reminder of what had been lost. The school held memorial services, creating a space for students and community members to voice their love and sorrow. Candles flickered in the illuminated darkness, and in that shared grief, the community found solace. Detective Harrington stood at the back, listening as Lena spoke, her voice wavering with emotion. "We will remember Jessica not just for how she died, but how she lived for her laughter, her kindness, and her spirit. Let's continue her legacy by being there for one another." Her words stirred the assembled crowd, a community reclaiming hope, even amidst their tragedy. Yet, in the shadows beneath the surface, the scars ran deep. The emotional fallout from the trial left many reeling. Conversations about responsibility and consent resurfaced among the youth, igniting discussions that felt raw and vulnerable. Students who once bonded over carefree laughter now walked carefully, acutely aware of the implications their choices carried. Some friendships frayed or formed new alliances based on shared grief, united in their struggle to make sense of the senseless. Harrington, too, had been deeply affected. He returned to his desk, the familiar piles of paperwork now tinged with a deeper sense of purpose. He devoted himself to preventive education, collaborating with local schools to initiate programs about dating violence, substance abuse, and preventive awareness. It was a small step, but he felt the need to transform despair into action, a way to ensure that no other family would agonize through the echoes of unfinished conversations. Yet for Jessica's family, healing proved elusive. Days melted into weeks, and while they attempted to adjust to a new kind of normal, the lingering heartache remained palpable. They started a scholarship in Jessica's name, aimed at supporting students pursuing psychology and social work, believing that by embracing their daughter's dreams, they could shine a modicum of light on the void her absence had left behind. The town itself began to change slowly. Community forums sprang up, discussions about mental health, support for victims of crime, and avenues for justice became prioritized, not just to commemorate Jessica, but to redefine the narrative of a community shattered by sorrow. It was a movement, one that rallied from the ashes of loss, transforming tragedy into a collective quest for resilience. As the seasons changed and autumn gave way to winter, Detective Harrington stood at his office window, gazing out at the streets festooned with snow, a soft blanket concealing the signs of grief that had defined the landscape not long before. In that moment, it was clear. While Jessica's life would never be forgotten, and her absence would always leave a mark, there was a resolve to create a future woven with deeper understanding and compassion where the shadows of the past would serve as guiding signs for brighter paths ahead. Reflection. As spring breathes life back into the town of Springfield, Detective Harrington found moments of quiet amidst the flurry of activity that had consumed the last several months. He often revisited the memories that haunted him: Jessica's laughter, the ripple effects of her absence, the faces of her family still grappling with grief. Each day was a reminder that real lives were often caught in the crosshairs of choices made by others, thus shattering futures in unforeseen ways. Sitting on a park bench during a rare sunny afternoon, Harrington took in the sound of laughter from children playing nearby, their innocence a stark contrast to the heaviness that rested in his heart. It was a comfort, yet it ignited a deeper resolve within him to ensure that they understood the importance of kindness, the stark realities of vulnerability, and in the power of community. Through educational efforts and open dialogues, he witnessed shifts among the youth, changes that resonated with the impactful legacy of Jessica. Her memory became a beacon of hope, as sentences were turned into opportunities for conversation about respect, trust, and the weight of one's choices. The community adopted a theme of compassion, slowly chipping away at the stigma surrounding conversations about mental health and victim support. In reflective moments, Harrington understood that healing would never equate to forgetting. Instead, he accepted that from grief, understanding could flourish, transforming sorrow into a clarion call for awareness and empathy. Justice for Jessica took on a new meaning, transforming pain into a foundation for collective growth, empathy, and a future where her light could continue to spark change beyond the boundaries of her earthly existence.